I have chosen a topic. It's called Sankirtan or Samkirtan. And it's particularly meant to be a little intriguing because I'm talking about a very subtle subject matter. And I'm also not so confident that I'll be able to communicate it, whatever I feel, so easily. But I'm going to give it a try. And you're also going to give it a try. Okay? What strikes you when you hear the word Sankirtan? What strikes you when you hear the word Sankirtan? Yeah. Congregational chanting. What's that exactly? A group of devotees chanting. Book distribution. Yeah, go out on Sankirtan. Who else? Engaging Krishna consciousness with others. Amazing. Yeah. The complete chanting and distribution of the holy name. The loud chanting of the holy name.
I was thinking how everyone should glorify the Lord together. That's what came to mind.
Amazing. How everyone should glorify the Lord together. Thank you. Are all these things the same? Are all these things the same? Exactly the same? They're not. In other words, Sankirtan has got a very, very broad umbrella of a meaning. Right? Yeah. And so what would be Sankirtan? I'll knock this or I'll knock this. You change the slide. Got it? You got it. Bahubir militva kirtayante sankirtanam uchyate. With many people together, you do kirtan. It's called Sankirtan. San means everybody together. Right? And what's the meaning of the word kirtan? It's coming from the word kirti. Kirti means fame. You've heard of Krishna telling Arjuna, Akirtim skaram Arjuna, Anarya Jushtam, Aswargyam, Akirtim karam Arjuna. Why are you acting in a manner that will not give you fame? Right? So Kirti means fame, singing the fame of the Lord. We also hear Shukadeva Goswami got perfection. By doing what? By doing what out of the Navaveda Bhaktis? He did Kirtan. He glorified Krishna day in and day out for 7 days. And he achieved perfection by doing that, singing the glory of the Lord. So many devotees together getting and doing glorification of the Lord together would be called Sankirtan. Now what do you think Samkirtan could be? I'll ask you. Huh? Only a little bit of that. Okay? What else?
The devotees doing their own thing to glorify the Lord, but not together, independent.
Wow.
Perhaps. The devotees doing their own thing to try and glorify the Lord, but not together.
He hit the nail on the head so fast. But he got it very close. Samkirtan could mean that somebody is doing something. And I want to illustrate a Samkirtan instance from Prabhupada's life for you. Excuse me, I got a bad throat. I'm going to illustrate a bad... Maybe you could tell me, if you knew, a Samkirtan instance in Prabhupada's life. Okay, I won't burden you with that. Prabhupada, you know that he took an immense risk. He took a great risk because he wanted to satisfy the order given to him by Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And he definitely had a clear understanding of what that is. You know, he has mentioned that, don't go to my God brothers. and ask them how to preach, how to run this movement. Because they haven't got it like I have got it from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. The way I have understood it, they haven't understood it. And you will see he's criticized them for it. And he has minced no words in criticizing and telling them, you didn't get it. You didn't get it. And when Prabhupada went and he endeavored and labored in America, I don't want to go into the details, but then he did think at some point that I should be doing this with all my God brothers as per the order of my Guru. And he did communicate with them. And he said, the field is very good. Why don't you come and join me? And we can do this because this is exactly what Bhaktisiddhanta wanted us to do. And he also offered, you could be the president, you could be the chairman. I would just work with you and try to do the best. We should all get together and do this. And you know what they replied? They said, no, Abai Babu, we know you a little too well. Right? You are a great man, you're a businessman, and you know how to do these things. If we come there, they said, we'll become a small fish in a big pond. It's better we remain here, big fishes in our small ponds. And they actually said this. And Prabhupada was very, very disappointed. Was very disappointed. And then, the Gaudiya Math grew on its own pace, fragmented in many different ways, and can grow to a certain extent. This is a classic example of Sankirtan. It's a classic example of Sankirtan. But what did Prabhupada go ahead to do? He did Sankirtan. He did Bahubir Militva Kirtayante. He followed the order of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He wanted the whole world to chant Hare Krishna, because that is predicted. Prithivite ache jata nagradi gram. I heard that in one session, Prabhupada came in there in his grahastha dress with his young, son, and he sat in one of those Bhagavatam classes given in Gaudiya Math by one of the sannyasis, wherein he gave an interpretation of Prithivite ache jata nagradi gram. He said that it means in Bengal, all the villages and everything in Bengal. The vision never went ahead, Prithivite ache, that just never went beyond Bengal. He said that's what it means. And then Prabhupada was disturbed. And after the session he was a very humble devotee, a congregational devotee visiting the temple, coming with his kiddo and, respecting everybody there highly. And he was disturbed. And he said, how is it that you can say that? He was conversing. When the Lord has mentioned, Prithivite ache jatana gram, how does it mean this? Krishna will empower some fool and he will get it done through him if he wants to. And he has mentioned so. Right? And at that time, I don't think Prabhupada knew the least bit. He said person was going to go and do it all over the world. And he said that, and he had such confidence that this is a worldwide prediction, a worldwide movement. And at that time, he had that pulse. He knew this is how it would be. This is how it should be. That's what differentiated Prabhupada from all his other God brothers. He got it. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur noticed, this person hears me, is interested in hearing me. And is hearing me very keenly. He's hearing me very keenly. So I'm just giving you a little background and giving you an example of what it would be. And Prabhupada was always concerned that ISKCON should not become another Sankirtan organization. Yes or no? Yes or no? Yeah. So I want to highlight something a little bit about these things to you. Here is something about Sankirtan that we can derive. Sankirtan is our connection with Krishna. Golokevara Premadhana Harinama Sankirtana. This chanting of the holy name comes directly from the spiritual world it descends. The absolute truth from the absolute world You have this absolute sound vibration coming down into the relative realm. And anybody and everybody can directly connect with it. That is the way it is set up by Krishna. And what is that? And what is that? If you look into the Chaitanya Charitamrita, it's mentioned very beautifully there. Chirad adattam nijagupta vittam. Chirad adatta means never before given to anybody. Dattam means to give. Adatta means never given to anybody. Nija gupta vittam. Vittam means your treasury. Nija gupta means your most confidential portion of your treasury deep inside. Nija gupta vittam. You know, all of us have our vaults and treasuries, and many of housewives have these things at homes. In India, at least, they have the big bunch of keys hanging around here, and they go down to the wall to open one and get into another, and then get into another and another one, and from the deep inside, they take out all their diamonds and necklaces, their documents of that land, and this and everything kept. Yes or no? How many of you Indian females around here, you know that, right? You, Nijagupta Vittam, my most valuable treasury. And nobody is going to share that with anybody. How many would like to share contents of your vault and your deep, confidential wealth and everything with anybody? Nobody wants to share it. But the Supreme Lord has decided to do that. Why? He's just in that mood. Mahavadanyaya. He's feeling most merciful and he wants to do that. My most treasured item. Swapremna, love of me, bhakti, prema, love for me, swapremna namamritam, ati udaraha. In the form of the holy name, I'm going to give this to everybody. That's why it's ati udaraha, super merciful, super dayalu. Right? That's what's coming to you in the form of Harinama Sankirtan. And it's being distributed by Lord Chaitanya. It's been distributed by this Sankirtan General Bhakti Vinod Swami Prabhupada all over the world, according to the prediction given. This we know. I'm just adding this to you. How important it is that Sankirtan is our connection with Krishna. If we chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We know we connect with Krishna. Yes or no? Yes. We connect with Krishna. We connect with the absolute truth. And that's why we are doing it. That's why we have that faith and we are doing it. We are doing it together because that's what has been told to us by our Acharya, by Lord Chaitanya. He came and did it and showed us together. We want to include as many people as possible in it. Actually, I had a questionnaire and I came that you will scan a QR code and answer it and there'll be a polling. But they told me there's not enough Wi-Fi here. My questionnaire to you is, I had 3 questions. I don't want to mouth it, but now I have to. Let's say, when I was young, I used to have, I'm from a Smartha Brahmin family. So at home, evening after I come back from play and everything, wash your hands and legs and you're going to say your prayers. And I would see my uncle once in a while coming in. While I'm praying, joking with me, he would pay his obeisances near the altar and they'll say, "Oh Lord," in Tamil he would say, "Yenamatram kapathu," which means that, "Please, save me alone." He would say that and he would look at me and wink. And he said, "I got to pray for myself, right? You got to pray for yourself." And I used to find it a little funny. But then I would think that, naturally, we all pray for ourselves, doesn't it? We all pray for ourselves. How many of you like to go back to Godhead alone? How many of you, after following Lord Chaitanya's movement and reading Prabhupada's books, how many of you have decided and planned to go back to Godhead alone? Come on. Say the truth. Are you really bothered about your neighbor? But all those devotees whom you've been preaching to? You are. Yes or no? These are hard questions of life. You won't have to be meeting with them there, right?
It's only trouble if you're in charge, Navina Nirada.
Have you thought about it? Sorry. Have you thought about it? Have you really thought about it? That is Sankirtan thinking. That's what Bhakti Vinod Swami Prabhupada was anxious about. Just imagine, you should understand the attitude behind Sankirtan. You should understand why Prabhupada went and what he absorbed from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. He wanted the whole world to go back to Godhead. Yes or no? Otherwise, why would he have done so many things? Amazing amount of things. He had this huge plan. And some of us, we won't even know. And as we move ahead, we are increasing in our learning and understanding of what Prabhupada's mission is sometimes. I am sure he had this plan of taking everybody back to Godhead. Right? And he wanted to make a plan for the whole world. That is Sankirtan thinking. It's very different from Samkirtan thinking. Both are good. Both are fine. You can sit down and do your own business somewhere. At least you'll be peaceful. You can chant your name and you can, try to go back to Godhead. But the whole thing about Bhakti Vinod Swami Prabhupada's movement is, we want everybody to go back to Godhead. We share this with our founder and we want to help him to do that. I may not be thinking like that so much, but I'm trying to do my little bit, something that contributes to his Sankirtan attitude, his contribution to take everybody back to Godhead. That's why he had a magazine called Back to Godhead. He believed in it. And he asked us that you go back to Godhead. In the early days when Prabhupada was, interacting with his newfound followers. And at that time, I'm paraphrasing it, that some of the devotees visited an Indian Swami who spoke about spiritual world and spirituality and everything. And Prabhupada is asking, so what did you understand? And they seem to be saying, it's not very clear. It was not, a little cloudy. We don't know exactly what he meant. And then Prabhupada said, that's because he doesn't believe in it. He doesn't believe in the spiritual world. And he's not able to give that to you. Prabhupada told us very clearly, we are going back to Godhead. And that's the goal of life. And he made the whole world understand it, believe in it. And we all believe in that. And that's what it is. Sankirtan means, of course, we want to go back to Godhead. We have a destination, we have a plan. We have a huge plan, each one of us. Sometimes people think that you guys have very ambitious, huge plan. You go back to Godhead. But that's what it is. Why would I be laboring? Why would I do all these things? We do that together and we don't want to leave anybody out. On the contrary, Sankirtan is you feel disconnected somewhere. You may have the feeling that I'm achieving what I want to achieve that others did not achieve or cannot achieve, or I can do something that the others are not free to do, etc., etc. You have some other things going with you, but really speaking, it's quite different. So what do we actually get from that? Here is Prabhupada's quote, very famous, from Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'll ask Lakshmi Moni.
Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, at the time of his departure, requested all his disciples to form a governing body and conduct missionary activity cooperatively. He did not instruct a particular man to become the next Acharya. But just after his passing away, his leading secretaries made plans, without authority, to occupy the post of Acharya, and they split into two factions over who the next Acharya would be. Consequently, both factions were asara, or useless, because they had no authority, having disobeyed the order of the spiritual master.
He said they were useless. He's used this word. They were useless. asara, very heavy, So, Prabhupada started this movement and he knew it's difficult to do this. He mentioned once here in Mayapur with his hands on his head, said, a spiritual movement in the material world, very difficult. He said this. Here he is saying, it is very difficult to push on this movement, but still we have to do it. And this is the highest yoga. If you push on this movement of Krishna consciousness, then you will be performing the highest type of yoga. Don't be misled by so-called yogas. This is yoga. Yoga means cooperation. Cooperation with the Supreme. Amazing definition of yoga. Alright? Yeah. This is the meaning of practical experience, application, and then speaking your realization on the basis of that, which is relatable, relevant, and actually doable. Prabhupada is doing it and showing it to us. He's saying it's difficult, but I'm doing it at this age, and you must carry it on. Another one. Who wants to read that?
Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself wanted our cooperation. He is God, Krishna, and therefore cooperation is a very important thing. Nobody should think that I have got so great ability, I can do. No, it is simply by cooperation we can do very big thing. United we stand, divided we fall. This is so be strong in pushing on Krishna consciousness, and Krishna will help. He is the strongest. Still, we must be combined together.
So these are simply some examples to you, but the best one is here from the Srimad Bhagavatam, where the prachetas are being spoken about by the Lord, saying that I'm very pleased with you because of your cooperative mood amongst yourselves. And in that purport, which is too long, I would summarize that for you. It's mentioned here about, I'm relating all these to Sankirtan, okay? Here, unity, cooperation is all about Sankirtan that I'm talking about. It's an extrapolation of the definition of Sankirtan that we had, and we'll connect this together. They were all united, and the Lord was very pleased. Our unity is pleasing Prabhupada, is pleasing Krishna, pleasing everybody in the parampara. And what is the definition of unity? Here, Prabhupada is saying, the unity of the individual souls attempting to satisfy the Supreme Lord or rendering service to the Lord is real unity. That's the meaning of unity. Prabhupada goes to criticize the United Nations. I think he's doing that here. In the material world, such unity is not possible. One statement, it's not possible. Then he criticizes the United Nations. They've been trying to do it. It has never been possible for them. What does it mean? Prabhupada is saying that we can show them what unity is. We are the only ones who can actually show what unity is by Sankirtan. We will actually show them that. Then he makes a very massive statement here. Disunity between individual souls is so strong that this material world, that even in a society of Krishna consciousness, sometimes members appear disunited due to their having different opinions and leaning towards material things. And leaning towards, isn't that? Why is it interesting to you?
Because having the different opinion isn't so bad. It's the leaning towards material things because you have a personal motivation, which makes things not palatable.
So if you're leaning towards material things, then there is disunity. Disunity is also due to having different opinions. Okay, yes. You see, different opinions. It's very interesting because Mataji said so. Yeah, yes. In fact, if you did not have a different opinion, I would consider you a completely homogenized society. Hail Hitler! Boom! Everybody down. Everybody is same. Everybody is homogenized. How do you like that? Harinam Sankirtan, we are all homogenized. Unity doesn't mean homogenization. Prabhupada wanted us to be independently thoughtful leaders. Right? You remember that. So having opinions is not bad. But initially, everybody has a different opinion before he comes to the right understanding. And it's a process. Krishna himself is saying in Bhagavad Gita, this is my opinion. That's interesting. Yoginam api sarvesham madgaten antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate ma same yuktatamo mataha. That is my opinion. That my devotee is the topmost yogi. Take it or leave it. You will definitely take it. And in the 13th chapter, he says, Kshetra kshetrajnayor jnanam yattad jnanam matam mama. According to me, my opinion, a person is in knowledge if he knows kshetra and kshetrajna. He knows the spirit and he knows matter. Right? He knows the field of activities and he knows the soul. Then he is in knowledge. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. And very smoothly in another place also he says, Machitta sarva durgani mat prasadat tarishasi atachetvam ahankara na sroshyasi vinangshyasi. You don't listen to me, you're finished. How nicely he stated it. It's my opinion. And if you don't follow my opinion, you're done with. Why? Because my opinion is the absolute truth. It's the reality. That's how things work in this world. Because I made it. I run it. And I've spoken about it in the Vedas. Vedaisya sarver ahameva vedya. You got to know me. And that's the truth. And I'm telling you, it's my opinion. Maybe you'd like to follow it. This is decency. This is high-class sophistication Krishna is using. Krishna is also putting his opinion. Then he's also saying that Rishibir Bahuda Geetam Chandobir Vividhai Pratak Brahma Sutra Padais Chaiva. That he's saying the rishis, he's talking about their opinions. They have concluded on cause and effect. He refers to them also. Arjuna also says, Asituro Devalo Vyaya Swayam Cheva Bravishime. Asita, Devala, Vyasa and all have said about you their opinion. And I'm seeing it now actually. So I believe in it. It's not bad to have an opinion. But if you have the right opinion like Arjuna is referring to, Asita, Devala, Vyasa, concluded and had the right opinion, it's fine. But you'll come to that opinion after you have a difference of opinion. And the fact that you have a difference of opinion is good, is healthy. Right? Don't be a clone, a homogenized clone. Nobody wants you to be that. Right? We all want our freedom, we want our free speech, we want our space, we want to express ourselves, there's no doubt about it. But don't think that this is something like that. Like Mataji said, thank you. You will have opinions, you're all individuals. Okay? Actually, in Krishna consciousness, there cannot be two opinions. There is only one goal. Prabhupada goes further to say that there are opinions, but there are no two opinions. But he doesn't say there should be only one opinion. He says you should serve Krishna with one's best ability. In other words, out of the different opinions you have, how will you make out what's the best? Which serves the cause of serving Krishna the best? We'll adopt that. It doesn't matter whose opinion it is. Because we are all interested in doing the best for Krishna, doing the best for Prabhupada. Right? We'll go by that. Krishna has inspired different people with different opinions. And we have distilled them and we have seen that according to this time, place, circumstance, this is the best we could do right now to offer. We vote for it. We do it. We've all been inspired by Krishna. We've all been asked to discuss it. We've all used our intelligence, like Krishna has said, and arrived at this opinion. We go for it. So that's what Prabhupada is saying. That if we can actually have different opinions, that's what the Prachetas did. They have different opinions. It's not that they were all homogenized. That's why Krishna was very pleased with you. All of you speak with one voice, you speak the same thing, with the same syllable, the same tone. Wow, I'm very pleased with you. Such obedient people. I'm sure that's not the way it is. They all had different opinions, but they were cooperating and knowing what to do is best to please Krishna. I think that's maturity. That's maturity. Prabhupada then goes ahead to say if there's any disagreement. And Prabhupada speaks about, like Mataji said, that there is difference of opinion even in the spiritual world. And Prabhupada gives examples of difference of opinion amongst the gopis, right? Who should do what, and etc., etc. We won't go into those details. So, this is a little bit about cooperation because I thought it's very relevant. Now, I just want to catch up on some history. I'll get back and revisit cooperation and Sankirtan again. I'm just taking a quote of Prabhupada, wherein Prabhupada is answering a question of a devotee. Why the heck are people in India so slack about taking up Krishna consciousness? And Prabhupada is answering that, which is a question in many people's minds, especially if you're Indians. And for me, it was a great discovery. Why didn't people tell me this all these days? I've been here all along, right here in India. Nobody told me this. And I've been worshipping that demigod and this demigod. I really want to do something about it, but nobody spoke to me about Bhagavad Gita as it is. I mean, it is very amazing. I learned about this when I was 25, 26 years old, and I was so stunned, and I went to my parents and asked, you know something about this? And they said, Bhagavad Gita, we know. What do you know about it? What do you know about it? And I could clearly say, you don't know anything about it. You don't know anything about it. And they said, what happened? What happened to you? I mean, we're following what we follow in our parampara. And said, yeah, that's trash. You don't know what it is. And I remember telling my father that, Brahmin house, they give you Brahma Upadesh and you have to put your Brahmin thread. I said, I'm not taking it from you because you don't know Bhagavad Gita. It was so harsh. I regret it. But after later he became a devotee. I told him that you don't know Brahma Gyan. You don't know the Bhagavad Gita. But my two brothers, I'm from a large family. I had 5 sisters and 2 brothers in my Purva Ashrama. So I told him this, and it was very harsh. He was a simple man, simple, nice man. It was very harsh. But I was angry that nobody is teaching these things, these wonderful things. So many Indians, when they come to know that this is completely different from what I know, what I've been told, and it's true, it's the right thing. Nobody told me. It's only Bhakti Vinod Swami Prabhupada who told me through his books, and I'm hearing it for the first time. But what's the history behind? You will see that it's even very interesting to know. And I'm very amazed that Prabhupada knew all this history pit-a-pat. He knew everything. Here he's speaking about the attitude of Indians, how they appreciated the Britishers, because the Britishers kept dumbing them down, that you are just a bunch of old, uncivilized guys. Prabhupada is saying here, in my childhood and boyhood, we had to read some book by Mr. Ghosh called England's Work in India. The purport was that we are uncivilized, and the British had come to make us civilized. Later on, the policy became successful because in our childhood days, any anglicized gentleman was considered to be advanced in civilization. This is exactly what Max Muller said we should do. He said we should introduce English and we should make them feel this is what it should be. And if you're this, then you're considered to be good, civilized, of some standard. But if you're what you are, you're no good. We have to introduce that feeling in them. We have to change their psychology. And they were successful in doing that. And one of the greatest reformers then, who is known to be the father of modern Hinduism, the Raja Ram Mohan Roy, a Brahmin in Bengal. And Prabhupada was, they were all from the same group. They were called the Bhadralok, the great advanced people. Raja Ram Mohan Roy, Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, Vivekananda, all of them were from the same group at that time. Yeah, Vidyasagar, all of them, even Aurobindo, all of them were the same, all reformers and great thinkers and intellectuals. Rajaram Mohan Roy is known to have stopped that sati performance, and In all our history books in the younger days, we read Raja Ram Mohan with a big hat like this, a round hat. His pictures everywhere. I'll recognize him anywhere because of that hat. And he was a great guy, a reformer. And he's the one who made Hinduism what it is now. But you know the guy, he wrote a letter to the British saying, remove Sanskrit. What do we get by learning Sanskrit? Introduce English. Introduce the science, the physics, and the humanities, and the philosophies, and everything that you have. And we will be a great group of Indians who would learn all these things and advance. There's a full letter of him. I was shocked when I read the letter about 2 years back. It's about 3 to 4 pages later, requesting the British to remove Sanskrit and put English. These are all the fathers of modern Hinduism. And Prabhupada knew all these things all along. He doesn't speak about it much because he says here, let's not talk about it. It's not important. For him, it's not important. But it's very interesting to know. Go ahead to the next. I'm not reading this detail. He speaks about Muslim rule and the Britishers. And he said, Muslims ruled about for 800 years and the Britishers did 200 years of colonization. Okay? And Prabhupada says that 200 years of damage that the British did far surpassed what the Muslims did for 800 years. Because they got right into your psyche. And they had a whole plan and arrangement to attack the culture, to attack the civilization. You must understand what it means, I think, to people who are colonized. They wake up very late. In India, at least, woke up very late to it. To be colonized and not be told your real history, to take away the history from everywhere, to burn it, to destroy it, and to rewrite all the textbooks, explaining a completely different thing. And that's what the Britishers did in most of these colonizers did that. The French, the Dutch, all of them did that all over the world. And the Britishers did a lot of it in India. Because from India, they gained the greatest wealth. It's estimated that 46 trillion pounds totally went from India to the Britain during the period of the colonization. It's a huge amount of money. It's a huge amount of money. And India was very wealthy. And they were after the wealth. Actually, it's called the Great Loot of India. That's the Britishers did. Prabhupada was in the center of it. The whole agitation was going on. All sorts of things were going on. He was a Gandhian at one point of time. And you know that he transformed after meeting Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We know all that. Here Prabhupada is saying, for example, lakhs of people still visit. He's talking about culture that is present even though the Britishers tried to efface it. It is still present and still Indians are at home with their culture. That's one thing that they cannot kill, could not kill to the fullest extent. But here, there is no hopelessness. If we revive Krishna consciousness in a systematic way, within a very short time we can revive our original Indian culture on the basis of the teachings of Lord Krishna and the Bhagavad Gita. So we have to work very hard for this purpose. And if you follow the path of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it will be very easily done. This is Prabhupada's movement. He said you should work very hard and you don't have to worry about the past history and all that hopeless situation. With Lord Chaitanya's prescription, you can work hard and you can reinstate that Indian culture. This is Prabhupada's plan. Prabhupada obviously knew a lot of history and he was in the thick of it, in the center of it. This is famous, I think all of you know George Orwell, 1984, and Animal Farm and all that. The most effective way to destroy people is to deny and obliterate their own understanding of their history. That's what happened. But after Prabhupada's movement has come, many Indians have actually woken up to their real culture without even knowing the history. And now they're getting to know the history also. And when they join up these two things together, they're very clearly understanding this is the real culture. If they just apply their brains a little bit, they get to understand that. And it's a real wonderful period to make people understand these things. And this guy, he knew it. Karl Marx knew it. About some years back, they unearthed a document, a book of his. He's written exclusively on India, the colonization and the Mughal rule in India, and what it was before. And he has analyzed amazing things. He has mentioned that India was filled with these type of small communities. He called them village communities. There was a temple in the center, and there were people around it, and there was one community everywhere. It was filled with a lot of communities. Some communities were very big, and many communities were under one king. It was filled with small groups. It's very amazing statistics, very amazing reality. And he is known to have noted all these things. He said they only trade with what surplus they have after they have consumed. They're not interested in trading actually. When they have a little surplus, only that they trade with for business. Otherwise, they don't do that at all. And he said there is no slavery. Because the rest of Europe and everywhere at that time, it was all through slavery that they were getting things done. And it was very horrible history. And then he made a point that don't think it was classless, because he's after a classless society. He said, but this was not a classless society. There were guys, powerful, sophisticated upper class, holding religious sway over the masses of people, the Brahmins. He was talking about the Brahmins, who were very wealthy, very powerful, and they had the power to control everybody else. He noted this. But the amazing thing he noted was the small communities and the type of economy they have, and how the labor class is different here. They're not, ill-treated. They're not slaves. They have their position. He made a very good analysis without having known Varnashrama and Shastra and everything from an outsider's viewpoint. And he went on to say, India should share this knowledge with everybody else all over the world, because this looks closer to communism. This looks closer to a possible equal society, an egalitarian society. But he recollects that how that has been spoiled, and the Mughals came in and the Britishers did all these things. Very detailed history he took out, and he mentioned this. So, I'm not going to go into big history. We are the fourth generation since Lord Chaitanya. Before that is Bhakti Vinod Swami, Prabhupada, and Bhakti Thakur, and Bhakti Vinod Thakur from 1838 to 1977. All three of them during the British times. They revived Krishna consciousness. Before that, the second generation was, Shyamananda, Narottam Das Thakur, and Srinivasa Acharya, who preserved all the scriptures, brought them to Bengal, lost it, and got it back again. And the first one is when the Mughal rule started in India. This is 1486 to 1534, Lord Chaitanya's period. In 1526, Babur invaded and started. The Mughal rule started in 1526. 8 years in Babur's rule, Lord Chaitanya was present here when the Mughal rule actually started. Before that was the Lodi dynasty and all of that together. And then in the Bhagavatam, you will see the Guptas, the Mauryas and all mentioned. In my history book, in my younger days, the golden age of the Guptas. And, Chanakya Pandit, Chandragupta Maurya, and used to write essays on it. But the Bhagavatam lists all these fellows and says, Dashu Prayeshu, all useless kings. The Bhagavatam just finishes them with one word. All cheaters, dacoits. Whether it is Gupta, Chandragupta Maurya, or all the golden age of the Guptas, one sweep of a comment. Forget it. All Kali Yuga products. In the 12th canto, you'll see Maurya Empire, the Gupta Empire, and Chanakya Pandit also mentioned in that. You will see that. Much before that, that's before the Mughals and this thing, and much before that, the Pandavas and Parikshit's descendants, we know that history from the Mahabharata, from the Bhagavad also. This history is what is filled with all sorts of communities and people. Yudhishthira Maharaj did not rule a nation. The nation idea came in only after colonial rule. These guys, the Britishers, brought in the idea of nations. There were civilizations everywhere that were destroyed and nations were made. They wanted global control. They made nations everywhere and colonized. Then they wanted one-size-fits-all economy so that they can control everybody. That's what is globalization. Homogenization of everybody. And it didn't work. It's not worked. It won't work. But Sankirtan will work. Because Sankirtan recognizes your individuality. It recognizes that you are individual and you can afford to be what you are. And if you can follow Krishna's opinion, it doesn't matter. You can still coexist with many people. When Yudhishthira Maharaj was ruling, there were all sorts of communities of people. You know, he went with Arjuna to the Nivachak Kavatakas, somewhere deep in the ocean. And he went there, this world, that. He had all sorts of people surrounding him, all sorts of communities of people. And they were not all like 100% Krishna conscious. The Shat Darshanas you have, you know, Nyaya, Vaisheshika, Karma, Mimamsa and all of that. All of them are not even theistic. They're not fully theistic. Right? But the whole Vedic umbrella covers all of them. And it's okay. You're convinced in this way. It's mentioned that Vyasadeva was waiting for Shukadeva Goswami to speak Bhagavatam to him, my son. Why? Because all that he taught all his other pupils, they landed up understanding it differently. They ingested it in a different way. But it's only when he spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam to Shukadeva Goswami, he knew that he's got it. He's got it. The real conclusion of the Vedic scripture. So it's not that in Vedic system of thought that you don't have atheistic people inside or partially theistic people. And you have all sorts of people under a huge umbrella. In other words, Vedic religion and Vedic idea is all encompassing. It's a huge umbrella. And all sorts of people are inside it. Everybody is encouraged to move up the ladder in some way or the other and giving them their space to actually do what they need to do according to where they are and develop their consciousness. You're not discouraged from it, right? You're not discouraged from having your opinion on even the Vedic scripture. And Vyasadeva is accommodating you in his ashram. And he's teaching you. So you have that type of a thing. That's what I want to tell you about. I call it Sankirtan governance. I'm just trying to wind up here. I'll just after that take questions. I am saying that I think Prabhupada has started a very unique way of governance. I'm just terming it Sankirtan governance. At once upon a time when I was giving book distribution, seminars, I would say that Sankirtan governance is by the books, for the books, of the books of Srila Prabhupada. Just telling them that I publish Prabhupada's books from the BBD, I distribute them, I read the content of the books, and I teach the content of the books. That's what I need. That's all my life is about. And books are the basis, and we should do this. Pretty fanatic about books and reading the books and distributing the books. It's all about books at one point of time. But I believe that Prabhupada has initiated a government, a whole method of ruling people so that they are very satisfied. Yatma suprasiddhati. By using Harinam Sankirtan, by using Lord Chaitanya's wonderful prescription and keeping the whole world happy. That's what he's mentioning there. It's possible to revive that Indian culture in spirit. It's possible to revive. And I think that's what Prabhupada repeatedly mentions in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And I don't know, somewhere here I have a vague hold on it that Prabhupada gave many different instructions on how to manage the society. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, he's talking about how ISKCON will take over and our leaders will actually get voted upon as leaders of the nations, and they will actually be in the government, they'll form governments, and he's given how they should do things in the Srimad Bhagavatam at that time. He has a vision how these things will happen. And I think that we are understanding things in bits and pieces. We're understanding things in bits and pieces, and rightfully so. Where are we? Take each one of you. Why are you in the Krishna consciousness movement? Why are you in the Krishna consciousness movement? Thank you. That's a practical answer. Yeah. Yeah. You want to go back to Godhead. Okay?
Because the material world is a miserable place, and the association of Vaishnavas is the only shelter.
Saying ISKCON is not in the material world, that means. That's okay. I'm deriving it. Okay. Yeah, anybody else wants to say something? It's for me. I am interested in actually elevating myself, my consciousness. I also want to connect with Krishna. That's the core impetus. Deep inside, I want to make progress in Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada's given us a beautiful place to house ourselves, to couch ourselves. I'm taking this from Professor Joseph Connell's words, and I think she will know that. He speaks about ISKCON's soft side and the hard side. He calls it the soft institution and the hard institution. Very interesting. Somebody told me, I'm part of the Hare Krishna movement, I may not be part of ISKCON. I think he's referring to the soft portion. Lord Chaitanya's movement, full of love and devotion and affection and care. And if you see his pastimes in Puri, all the devotees coming to see him, giving him all sorts of offerings, and he offering himself to them, and the very beautiful emotional, spiritually emotional feelings and the relationships and all that makes it sound so good. Right? So there's a soft portion of institution which we all like very much. In fact, that's what attracts us. That's what attracts us. The devotees, their association, the love, the care, and everything that they give, and how they groom us up. In fact, that's what's most attractive in association. And that's the lifeblood. We all live by that. We get an impetus to go ahead in Krishna consciousness with that association. But there's another portion of the institution, the hard portion of it. It's needed. The hard portion deals with the laws of the land, the government liaison with other forces and agents, protecting this whole soft portion from other types of attacks, tangible and intangible type of attacks, and all sorts of things. There'll be legal suits, all sorts of things filed against ISKCON, which we are suffering, and we fight all those things. There's a hard part of the institution. You'll see that, the hard part into the world outside. But there's the hard part that's also, the inside of the hard part is also towards the soft portion of the institution. If somebody does something there that's not very acceptable, then we deal with that also through the hard part of the institution. Generally, we don't stretch into this much, the hard portion, but when it's necessary, we have to do that also, right? You agree with that, right? But normally, this is the soft portion of the hard institution, the inside portion. But where required, when push comes to shove, then we need to do something about it. That time, the hard side, you can feel it. And sometimes people don't like it. But this is what you really like, the soft portion of the institution. Yes or no? Yeah, everybody likes that. And you are placed in coordinates in this world. You left everything outside. You cut off your connections with people whom you know, your friends, your relatives, your all sorts of other occupations and vocations that you had, and you completely put yourself under the control, under the order of Guru. And inside this soft institution, you have all those things happening. Right? So you are placed here. You should take care of yourself, definitely. And for that, you need this soft portion of the institution. You need this hard crust of the hard institution to protect the whole group against other types of invasions. And from here, you reach out to the world of people outside and preach with safety, security. You need all these things. You won't do this all alone by yourself like Prabhupada did, land up in America and start a movement and craft the soft portion and the hard portion of it and set it rolling and all that. It's not our cup of tea. We need this to couch ourselves. And this is how we are placed. And all of us need the institution, need all the association, need all the resources of the institution to practice Krishna consciousness. It's very valuable. It's very important. So it's also our responsibility to actually perpetuate this security, to perpetuate this, and therefore I must carry this out responsibly. And my Sankirtan attitude plays a role here with me, with the other people in the society, with the people of the world outside. In all these three areas, my Sankirtan attitude will come to play. How I have inclusivity and how I include all of them. How I include all of them privately. Guhyam akyati prichati, bhungte bhojete chaiva. How will I reciprocate with all of them? All these things are very healthy for my spiritual life and I need it. And this is how the whole thing is crafted and we are placed like this. And so when I say that we have the responsibility, like Prabhupada took the responsibility of getting the whole world into Krishna consciousness. And if you are also supposed to take that responsibility on your head, you'll have to also be contributing from this place with the resources that Prabhupada has set up for you. Right? And therefore, we are all charged with the responsibility of doing Sankirtan and not, I am confirming, wow, somebody confirmed it, that we are all charged with the responsibility of performing Sankirtan. Sankirtan does not mean only loudly banging the kartal and the mridangas to actually sing the glories of the Lord. Sankirtan means we all serve the Lord together with great maturity and satisfy Srila Prabhupada, satisfy the Parampara, satisfy Krishna. And for that, like I said, that going back to God, it is not an individual effort alone. It's a collective enterprise. It's a collective enterprise. And that's what Prabhupada has taught us when Prabhupada, comments on, Prahlad Maharaj saying, I don't want to go to the Himalayas and sit down and do my own thing. I want to work for these people. I'm concerned about them. I'm not worried much about myself. So Prabhupada did that, and that mood of Sankirtan, I think that forms the basis of the type of governance that ISKCON would have and should have in the future, which means something else. I'll bring this one instance to you to illustrate what I'm saying. This was given to me by Madhu Sevita Prabhu in the last 2-3 days. I was on the table with him on a discussion and he told me this. I thought it was very interesting. Here is Prabhupada speaking to Tushta Krishna. I think he was Swami, Tushta Krishna Swami. Prabhupada is saying, if you want to start your own spiritual movement, you have my permission. It's amazing, right? Tushta Krishna, no, Srila Prabhupada, that is not my desire. And Prabhupada is saying, there is no harm. Unless a tree has many branches, it's not beautiful. You could be on a branch. But Prabhupada then paused and spoke gravely. But the taste of the fruit must be the same. The branch must bear the same fruit as the branch it has grown from. Look at Prabhupada's very broad. This is why he's a Sankirtan general. He knows how to spread it. He's not thinking the way we normally think because we got trained up in these education institutions and these corporations. He thinks very differently from all that. He just uses all that and his thinking is different. He went against centralization. Don't centralize. This is the way it should grow. It's very similar to what Karl Marx noted. There were communities of people. And very similar to what we hear in the Mahabharata and everything. Because that is what is comfortable for a human being. He gets his free space. He can be a human being. He can be individualistic. He can serve the Supreme Lord. He can actually go back to Godhead. That's how it is designed. That's the original design. All the colonization and nationhood and all these other things came later. Civilizations existed. The Mesopotamian civilization, the Egyptian civilization, the Indus Valley civilization, you name it, all these guys exist. And they were indigenous cultures. And they were all worshipping some form of God or the other, actually. And then came all the great evangelists right from Columbus, 1492. If you read that, it's very interesting because Prabhupada traveled on a ship and changed the whole world. And Columbus is known to have, in 1492, sailed across, discovered America. And in 1493, he got a note from the Pope. I think the Pope's name is Alexander, whatever his name, Pope Alexander. He is writing on his report that I've discovered America and I've done these things and I've converted them. It was actually a whole evangelical plan. And the Pope is saying, but that's not your destination. Your destination is India. Your destination is it's written down there. Your real destination is India. Those guys who are idolaters, those guys who are worshippers of many gods, they need Christianity. You must land up there. And that's how it's mentioned that India's name went all over. Many people were talking about India because it was very advanced. The GDP of India was 32. It was the highest in the world. India made the best muslin cloth, best ships. India made the best steel. And there was no great technology like they're talking about now. In everything it was best. There was nothing much for them. There was nothing much for them. Muhammad Ghazni came and, plundered 18 times. And they didn't raise a finger. They really didn't value these things so much. It was like a byproduct of their great spiritual wealth and culture. Huge wealth. Massive amount of, learning and education and name it, in all fields, they were experts. And it's from then onwards that all these things started. So with that type of an economy, that type of a thing, Prabhupada is saying, there's nothing wrong. You can go ahead if you want to start your own movement, but you're a branch of this, right? Don't forget that. Isn't this very broad? Is this very broad? Yeah. So sometimes, we tend to look at it, rules, regulations, rigidity and certain things. But I think the Krishna conscious movement, if it has to accommodate everybody, we definitely need to be thinking a little differently. Right? I'll stop here. Om Tat Sat, Hare Krishna, and I'll open up for some questions that you may have. Please.
It was written in 1956, before he came to America. It's written to the President of India. I'm not going to read the whole thing. The aim of life, he's writing to the President and asking him to help him. The aim of life should be to make a sincere effort to go back to Godhead. But contrary to this, the tendency is to go back to hell, or in the cycle of evolutionary animal life, as it described in the 16th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Please therefore save them from the great fall down. Believe me or not, I have got the clue of going back to Godhead just after leaving my present material body. And in order to take along with me all my contemporary men and women of the world, I have started my paper Back to Godhead as one of the means to this way. Please do not think me as wonderful or a madman when I say that I shall go back to Godhead after leaving my present material body. It is quite possible for everyone and all of us. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that very clearly that whosoever may adopt the specific principle of accepting Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, he will be able to achieve the highest transcendental goal of life, never mind whether he is either a born untouchable, a fallen woman, a laborer, or a man dealing in rupees or anna. His being so, where is there difficulty for a pious Brahmin and devoted king for going back to Godhead? Everyone should therefore adopt this principle of going back to Godhead in order to get released from the world of miseries with temporary existence. This fact is corroborated by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and is the practical demonstrator of Bhagavad Gita as the most magnanimous incarnation of Sri Krishna. The personality of Krishna Chaitanya has made the path of going back to Godhead so easy for everyone that even a boy of the world can swim across the ocean of religiosity, although it is injected with so many dangerous animals ready to devour up a fallen person in that great mass of water. I have simply adopted the easy method of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just suitable to the modern people in general. As such, I am feeling as sure of going back to Godhead as I feel without any doubt after taking my dinner that I have eaten to my satisfaction. This feeling is necessary concomitant factor of the great science of devotional service in the approved line of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. I am therefore very eager to broadcast the secret of my success to all men and women of the world. As a natural consequence, I am seeking your excellency's help.
Hari Hari Bol. Srila Prabhupada ki. See that statement? I plan to take all my friends and contemporaries and everybody with me too. And the world. This is a reality. And Prabhupada knew it to be a reality. He was not marketing something, will o' the wisp, pie in the sky, something. It's real. Take it back to Godhead. You see, the thing is that in answer to the perception is most of the criticism against religion is against the Christian religion. When people talk about religion, they talk about the hoary history it has got. It's got all the bloody history behind it. And then follows the Muslims also. But most of the time when people refer to religion, they refer to these histories. That's another thing. There are 15% Hindus in the world out of the 8 billion population that you have. The maximum are Christians. And they had such an evangelical spirit that was like bloody evangelical spirit. You see the history. And people are done with that type of thing. It's not that you shove religion down everybody's throat and kill them. The one thing I read was, I did some work on this. They said that anybody who is not a Christian doesn't have a soul, therefore has to be killed. This was the type of attitude that they had when they were actually doing their colonization. Side to side with the colonization, very closely was the whole evangelical movement. It's all about conversion. And nobody knows it. On the outside, it was like colonization and business and looting and money. But underneath, in the thin veil, working in tandem very closely was all about conversion. So people know this history. And whenever they talk about religion, they're talking about this hoary history. But you don't see that type of history in India, in the Vedic religion. You don't see so much of stuff, and nobody knows about it. To map that type of a religious perception on India is another thing that I would see people sometimes do. I don't think there's such a history. I'm not saying this because I'm an Indian. But I think barbarous, marauding hordes of invaders came inside from all sides. And I think from history we can understand that they were a very gentle lot of wonderful people. I'm not saying because I'm an Indian again. At some point of time, and they couldn't relate with this barbaric forces that came. There was no match for that type of a treatment. It was very different. That's what history says, really speaking. And Prabhupada is trying to bring the genteel aspect of that. That's what he calls culture, reviving that aspect. A civilized society with Krishna in the center. That's the type of thing we're trying to say. It could be, called Hindutva, and it be used by the present government to get whatever they want to get. And they don't know a fig about many of those things also. So it's not that Prabhupada didn't also go there as an Indian. You're right. He didn't project himself as although people could see him like that, the way he spoke and his all-embracing way and his behavior, everything was very different. It was very different. And we should follow that, no doubt.
I just wanted to say that this difference in what you say, the word religion, it's something that as a giver of spiritual knowledge, you have to really be careful that you and the person you're talking to are speaking about the same words. Whatever you're saying to them, they need to receive it, what you're saying to them, and they won't unless the words are defined. So if you talk religion and they talk religion, you're not necessarily talking about the same thing. And that has to be clarified, and I think that's something what Naveen and Narada was trying to point out.
Yeah. Everybody just wants to say something? Yeah.
So when you were talking about the Hindutva, they don't really have the same clue that what you're talking about here. There's a Bengali saying, I don't know the Bengali, but the English translation is, take your own mortar and pestle and break your teeth with it. So the problem is that, we're seeing a new resurgence of so-called Hindu fanaticism going on right now. At least that's the way the media is portraying RSS and BJP and so forth. And to some outsiders, it may look like they're taking the methodology of the Christians and the Muslims who have, fanatically converted or reconverted or unconverted or whatever they have done. And now, they're seeing similar type of rallies and angry faces and angry shouting and so many things from members of the Hindu community here in India. And they're equating the two. And perhaps there may be some legitimacy to that because after so many hundreds of years of being oppressed by outsiders, they're taking their own mortar and pestle and trying to break their teeth with it. But without Prabhupada's clue of this is the real spiritual culture, they're not getting it, just like what Prabhupada was saying about his own godbrothers. So that is a danger. And what we can do about it, that's another discussion, but we should be aware of it, perhaps.
Especially for people in India. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, I have a small comment. I was thinking about all this Hindu nationalism. That actually we follow the Rupa Goswami's doctrine of Yukta Vairagya, which actually celebrates globalism, embracing Christian Muslim culture. Because at that time, there was a South India which isolated itself. It made a kind of Vedic incubator. So it defined Vedic culture as all those things which are not contaminated by foreign invaders. For example, there was a chadar was resisting Arab Kirtan. And there was a wooden paduka against chapal. So defined Vedic culture like something which is isolating, like something narrow-minded, closed. But then Rupa Goswami, he said a different idea. We can offer to Krishna Turkish halava or kofta. We can dress Krishna Murti as a Mughal prince. We can build temple with Muslim architecture. And then also as it appears, the other acharyas like Bhakti Vinod, Bhakti Siddhanta, they're expanding further into embracing English values. God bless the king. Then Bhakti Vinod glorifies English government because he's very efficient in India, and Prabhupada, he dovetailed all his English language to preach. So it appears that we celebrate this expansive Vedic culture, rather this incubator South Indian type of Vedic culture, which they said that you cannot drink Muslim water, you become a Muslim. If you cross across the sea, there are Muslim ports, Arabia, Egypt, Mesopotamia, so you drink water, you cannot return back to India because you become a Muslim. But it appears that we have the opposite culture, to expand, so that the Vedic culture is something that embraces everything. We can offer South Indian fruits, but also South American fruits, African fruits. Like if we are in Siberia, we don't offer that mango from supermarket, but we can offer some berry, blueberry, wild strawberry. So it appears that our culture is very expansive, that everything is offerable to Krishna, not just those, Ramanuja recipe, 1,000 years old from that type of banana only is offerable to Krishna. But we have a very global and universal culture that goes beyond Hinduism, beyond Hindutva and all this, Jai. This is my...
Exactly right, you said it. Somewhere I think
I don't know, somewhere I think I've touched a tender nerve. Unbeknownst to me. Yeah. But I thought I was speaking to my family members, and I could speak it, and I put out quotes of Prabhupada, and I was trying to sail on what Prabhupada also mentioned. I am not a South Indian, I am not an Indian, I am not any of those things. Definitely I've understood that, just in case I'm trying to make it plainly visible. I am a member of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and you're all my brothers and sisters, and I'm talking to my family members. And it's not about India, it's not about the West, it's not about this, that, or anything. Okay? I just want to make it very clear. I just went into some history because I thought that Srila Prabhupada came from that historical background, and he did make mention here and there about it to show that he knew it very well. He knew that very well. And he was inside that situation during the British times, and he chose the other way. He actually chose to follow Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because he told him that, what will you do with independence for India now? First you should get independence from material nature. That's a bigger independence you should strive for. And that convinced Prabhupada very much. Right? So there's no doubt that we are an international society for Krishna consciousness. And we are all spirit souls, part and parcel of Krishna, dedicated to Bhakti Vinod Swami Prabhupada's order. And we should never be thinking like Hindus. Period.
Thank you very much for saying that, Maharaj. I just want to say that I cannot speak for anyone else, absolutely, but perhaps I'm getting the sense that many of the things that were spoken by my compatriots and myself were already on our minds and at the surface of our hearts. And because you gave a wonderful presentation, and we understand that we're all family, and that you're very much a very dear brother and uncle of ours, that we felt safe to reveal our innermost thoughts. And that's why we said what we said. Not that you touched a nerve, but because we feel the affection and the safety in this room to speak what's on our minds.
Thank you for understanding. But I'll take care that I don't speak much of these things. I shall edit and re-edit in the next session.
So I'd like to thank you for a wonderful class, and it's my very first time seeing you as a presenter, and I'm very happy to have made your acquaintance. You're wonderful at presenting. But could I ask you a question? Not to say something, but so you were talking about Sankirtan and Samkirtan, and I assumed you were speaking about the Kanishta Adhikaris in relation to Samkirtan. Then I started thinking about, is it to do with Goshanandis and Bhajanandis? And you brought up Prahlad Maharaj saying that he doesn't want to go back on his own, indicating that he would rather be a Goshanandi. So could you speak a little about the Bhajanandi? Are they falling in this category of Samkirtan? Or?
Yes. See, my main point was about keeping ourselves together and taking the shelter of Srila Prabhupada's wonderful institution and his plan and mission. I think that we owe that much to Srila Prabhupada. It hurts Bhakti Vinod Swami Prabhupada to see any one of his family members go astray or step out or suffer in that position of Sankirtan. You know? The idea was, you will see that in examples of Prabhupada, you see Kirtanananda Swami in history. Prabhupada chastised him. Prabhupada told him not to speak what he's speaking. And there's a whole history of it. And he went through a lot. He had a completely different opinion. Prabhupada somehow instructed him, at the same time looked after his fledgling society from influence of such persons. At the same time, got him back after some time, cured him and got him back to do services. But it looked like he never fully got cured, but later some other things also happened. Similarly, you will see what he's telling to Tushta Krishna Swami. It's very broad. It can accommodate. So Prabhupada stretches himself to accommodate as much as possible. It's not like that he's so rigid. So I mean to say that stay in the Sankirtan umbrella provided by Prabhupada. There's no reason for doing Sankirtan. We are facing this in South India. We have a whole Ritvik group, and in Bangalore, and the entire India is harassed in many different ways in terms of questions that we have, and lots of things happen. I mean, it's not so easy to have another group possess the same title and compete with you and do things with you. It's disturbing. Especially, what's the greatest product? If you look at ourselves as an organization that is, commercial venture or anything, what's our product or what's our final product? What is our final product? After all the labor we do, we build temples, we maintain them, we collect funds, we have projects, we work so hard, we maintain deities, worship and everything. What's our final product? Krishna Prema, right? It doesn't come immediately, but the product is that devotees are our products. We produce devotees. And even a more intangible product, an asset, is the faith embedded in these devotees. Out of a lot of work that we do. Give them association, give them knowledge, give them care, and cultivate, nurture them and everything. They have a faith in the devotees, in the movement, in Prabhupada, in their seniors, in their guru, and all these things together. But this is exactly where Maya will attack you. And when people spoil that faith, then you lose your product. It's such a great damage. Nobody likes to lose the, produce of all their hard labor. So when your faith gets attacked, it's very dangerous. Right? So we should do everything possible to see that they don't become weakened, they don't become attacked in any way. And you can see Prabhupada went out of his way to accommodate it and protect the faith of everybody. You should see that. So our leaders should protect the faith of the devotees. It's their duty. All of you are leaders, and you should compromise, you should adjust, you should stretch yourself, you should make sacrifices if necessary to stretch and accommodate and wait. Like Prabhupada did, bring them in again, after all. Right? In that sense, I mean that some Kirtan is a common phenomenon in this material world. A separatist attitude, wanting to do something on my own, is very common. To work against that attitude and use Sankirtan it's what I mean by Sankirtan governance. It's not just ordinary management that you do of resources of land and capital and money and human resource, like they call it, derogatorily. We actually, our resources, bhakti, the faith, the devotees, and these are very intangible resources, some of them, and we need to manage them. And I'm saying that Sankirtan governance takes care of that type of resource. Others are ready to go. Thank you. Hare Krishna, thank you very much for your patience.